the fire chief, and a friend. She's endured a lot over the last several years, including the department's darkest day in history just 7 months ago. As chief, Julie has been instrumental in shaping the department's culture and morale, cultivating a team approach to policing, and enhancing community outreach efforts. In fact, during the search to find her replacement, some department members asked me if I could actually withhold her resignation letter. It's become clear that she has made a lasting impression on her work family here. Julie has also been a dedicated contributor to the city's leadership team. Each week, her peers and I look forward to receiving her department update and simply just catching up. I know that we will all especially miss the funny stories about her grandson, Reed. No matter what the situation is, she always knows what to say and exactly when to say it. So not only does she work here, she also grew up in the White Bear Lake community and chose to raise her family here. Being a police chief is no easy task, and many times family has taken a back seat to work. Despite this, Julie and her husband Dave managed to raise 3 great sons, all who have chosen to stay close to home, 2 of which also work in law enforcement. So Dave, Sam, Jake, and Matt, thank you for sharing her with us for all of these years. When preparing for my position, I was so excited to learn that we had a female police chief. As true as 2 strong female leaders in predominantly male-leading career fields, we've been able to relate to, lean on, and learn from each other on many levels. That's something that I have valued very much. Almost made it through. So, Julie, thank you for your many years of service and dedication to the city, for being a strong leader in law enforcement, and for advocating for this community and this organization. I'm so proud of all that you have accomplished and excited for your next chapter in retirement. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. One more thing. Okay, we're not quite done yet, as the Minnesota Association of Women in Police have something also for you tonight, so thank you.
Thank you to the council for having us and the city manager and soon-to-be chief. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I am Lieutenant Ashley Lang with the University of Minnesota Police Department. I am currently the historian on the Minnesota Association of Women Police Association, I suppose. And Christina is also a board member with me on the association. So we are presenting you an award for heritage. It is for your many, many years of service to your community. Obviously a trailblazer before us all. And Christina has something that she has also prepared. So I will let her speak.
So I actually had the honor of having you as a teacher at Century College. So nice to see you in person.
Yes.
Okay, so I did write this out, so bear with me here. While attending Century College for a law enforcement degree, I had the privilege and honor to have met Chief Julie Swanson as one of my teachers whom I looked up to and enjoyed learning from. By seeing her in leadership role as chief and taking the time to invest in my law enforcement education, she influenced my experience in such a positive way. I was a mother working full-time between 2 jobs, managing a household while attending school full-time. Chief Swanson recognized my abilities in class, and it helped me stay focused, knowing that my hard work would pay off and that I too could have success like she did. As we know, entering this profession takes hard work, adaptability, honor, respect, integrity, excellence, and to serve with compassion in and around the communities in which we live, work, learn, and serve. It was an honor to have crossed paths with Chief Swanson, as I was inspired to bring something special to this profession like she did. As women, we bring something unique to this profession. We are natural leaders, mentors, mothers, wives, partners, friends. We tend to our flock. We bring compassion and awareness. We are multitaskers and forward thinkers. We are adaptable in our environments. We bring strength. We carry a peacemaker heart. We bring tenderness and assertiveness. We show up where we are needed and value our partners. We also are dreamers of new opportunities and growth. We serve our communities, partners, and families as if they were our own. We invest in those around us we care about, and we go where we are called and show up to the best of our ability. Thank you, Chief Swanson, for your dedication and investment to this profession, the community, and representing women in policing in Minnesota and around the country. You've inspired us to keep growing. Congratulations. Thank you again.
Probably wouldn't be appropriate to say, peace out, I'm out, right?
Required to give a speech, so please, yes.
So Mayor, members of the council, and Lindy, thank you. Some of you know that I've kind of been dreading this day, so I did write it down in case I had stage fright, but thank you for letting me be here, hosting us, and allowing my family to come before you one last time. I have really appreciated the support that I've received from the council, and I'll always be grateful for that, and from the city leadership. The kindness that the police department receives from our elected officials, our leadership in the city, is what has made this such a great job to do, and an easy job to do, and I really appreciate the kind words that you shared today, Lindy. I'm thankful for Mark Sather having faith in me so many years ago when I was hired, and again promoting me to chief. There have been a lot of times that I've thought, what in the hell was he thinking? Like, I'm sure he's like, holy cow. But it seemed to work out, so that was good for everybody, right? It's been a really good career, and one that I've loved more than I can share in just the few minutes here. And being able to serve in my own community has been a huge privilege, and it kind of came by fate. I was working for the Sheriff's Department at the time, and decided that I would try to get a job here, and it worked out pretty well. I was really happy that things panned out the way that they did, because it's really been an honor to serve in my own community. So thank you to my family for always supporting me and for their patience. I have a lot of extended family here, but Lindy nailed it when she talked about Dave and Sam, Jake, Matt, Sammy and Allie and Reed and Drew being there. There's been a lot of, we have a habit of doing Sunday night dinners at our house every week, and there have been a lot of interrupted dinners, interrupted events. I've missed a lot of sporting events, school events. Don't really feel bad about missing all those choir concerts. Sometimes that was intentional, but there's been a lot of times that I haven't been there for them because of work commitments, and they've always been very supportive, and they've always had patience with me, and obviously it turned a couple of them towards law enforcement, so they must be wanting to miss choir concerts too someday. So I appreciate them just supporting me through all the distractions. We talked about this a few weeks ago, but the family of police officers are very special people. They put on a brave, the officers put on a brave, or the family puts on a brave face for their family. They support us through the good and the bad, and then they know to just ask questions later, or maybe never ask questions at all. There have been a lot of times when I know that more recently Dave's had to wait for hours to get an update on something that's going on, and that I think that this last year and a half has been a little bit harder for him after the Roseville incident and then our own incident. And as you know, I wasn't here at the time of our own incident, but he just knew he needed to pack his bag, and he was probably going home, and he didn't really know when. And he knew he'd go on another vacation someday, and I'd tell him where it was the day before we were going. So he's been a really good supporter for a very long time, and he was the driving force to me becoming a police officer. He really encouraged me to do that. So my family knows that they're my number one, but they've also been very good about supporting that there's been a place in my heart for my White Bear Lake Police Department family. So finally, there's no words for the gratitude that I have for the people I've worked alongside through this career, and many of them are here. I know we talk about how great our police department is, how great our city is, how great our fire department is, and I am here to tell you, and I'll continue to tell you, they are really great. It's those people that have made my job so much fun. I spent almost half my life with the police officers, day in and day out. Well, not all of them, because some of them were born about a half a life ago for me, but I have spent day in and day out, and that's what I'm going to miss the most. I had my last roll call with light side day shift today, and it was very surreal. That's the part that's really hard to leave behind. They've always been a big part of me, who I am, and I feel like I'm leaving a piece of my heart behind, and I can't thank them enough for always being there for me, and for each other, and for their friendship. So with that, I'm not going to talk anymore, but thank you, everybody, for what you've done for me. And I mean, I know that you've thanked me, but it's the greatest job there is, and I was really lucky to be able to spend it in White Bear Lake. So thank you. family wanted to know when they could go, and I'm usually the one that has to tell everybody they have to go. So I don't know if you're done.
Yes,
Sure.
1 second. I just want to offer my thank you for your many years of service on behalf of the council. I've only been mayor for the last year and a half, so I know that Ellen and others in the city and Joe really work side by side. But in the last year and a half, I've seen nothing but good things, and you leave a proud and lasting legacy that you can be proud of. And we're sad to see you go, but we do wish you the best of luck in this next chapter of your life. So we're going to make everyone stand one more time. Let's give our almost.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure, go ahead.
Can I? Is that okay? Chief Swanson, you've been one of the people that have made me feel comfort in your position. And that word is kind of odd, but it's what I feel. When you took over as chief, there was a certain level of comfort to that. 3 years ago, when we experienced 2020, you had comfort in our community. 7 months ago, comfort, even though unbelievably stressful. And raising 3 daughters and having people like yourself as a person to look up to, even though there's no way they're ever going to be a law enforcement career in them. It means a lot to me personally, and I hope our community, and I know that is reflected in all of your officers, including all of the fires, to see everybody for our emergency systems work together. I think that's a big part of you and Chief. It's both, but it's like comfort. And thank you for providing our community comfort and safety for the amount of years that you did for the city. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Now you can go.
She deserves it. It's 2 or 3 years. It was 2 or 3 years. She was chief. I stayed. I was the city manager. You had Carolyn Cross was representative. Victoria Reiner, Sandy, State Senator. Just all representing us. It was really cool to say to my daughters, be whatever you want to be. Yeah. Thanks, Dale.
Part of the criminal justice system. 5B, prosecution services update. Ms. Monens and Mr. Olson, please.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. I'll try to keep this short. I think there's ice cream next door. I'll introduce myself. I'm Heather Munnins. I'm a partner attorney at GDO Law. Rob Olson is also a partner attorney at GDO Law. We have been handling the prosecution contract for over 25 years, I believe since 1997. Just some general statistics. I provide the city manager statistics every quarter, but from July 1st, 22 to July 1st, 23, we've handled approximately 474 misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor cases. This does not include the petty misdemeanors, which we have a lot of citations for. Of those, 131 have been DWI resolutions, and 81 have been domestic-related resolutions. We've done about a half a dozen contested court hearings. We've done a dozen or so court trials. These would be the traffic tickets. And we've done a couple jury trials during this time. Ramsey County is still dealing with COVID backlog of cases because Ramsey County essentially shut down for almost a year. When COVID hit, we are still trying to resolve these cases. There's been a big push by the Minnesota Supreme Court to get these cases resolved. As a result of that, we've had a couple special calendars. We've had DWI resolution events, and we've had domestic resolution events. In these cases, they've been special trial settings to try to get us to resolve these cases. If we don't resolve them, they pretty much immediately go to trial, and they have standby judges. We've also continued to transition back to in-person court. What this means is the only thing we are going to be doing that is going to be via Zoom is our court trials for our traffic tickets. I think this is beneficial because we have a lot of state trooper cases, as well as we have a lot of officers that work night shift. And so they can now just appear from whatever convenient location they have. Starting September 1st, our first court appearances will also be going back in person. Those have been the one holdover of Zoom in the last year. On average, my office appears for 23 court calendars a month. These are from the first court appearance all the way to the contested hearings to the trials. Starting January 1st, we will have a new scheduling system. I've been on a lot of scheduling meetings to try to figure out how we want to do the system going forward. We will now be assigned to a 2-judge team starting January 1st. So of the 16 or 14 judges assigned in criminal division, we will have all of our cases heard in front of 2 judges. I'm not sure what judges those are right now. I believe we talked about this a little bit last year of the fact that my office is continuing to prosecute 5th-degree drug cases. These should be felony cases done by the county attorney. At the last few years, they said their COVID policy says they're not going to prosecute these cases. Now that COVID is over, they're just saying their general policy is not to prosecute these cases. So when the decline letter comes to our investigators, they forward it to us, and we will file charges for the 5th-degree drug cases. Every year I do training. This last year I've done a couple training sessions with White Bear Lake Police Department. I did training in April. The training was on report writing as well as just some other various topics. Just this couple weeks ago in August, we did training for the entire police department. I had the pleasure of reading the 500-page public safety bill along with the new cannabis bill. There's been more changes in our laws this year than I think any other year in my history. Some of these changes were anyone over the age of 21, cannabis is now legal in certain amounts. There's changes to the DWI laws. There's changes to the laws of marijuana in a motor vehicle. They're treating it like alcohol in a motor vehicle. As long as it's in the trunk, it's legal. If it's unpackaged or not in its original form in the front seat, it's an offense. There's also changes in expungement. This means that if you have a petty misdemeanor or misdemeanor offense, there's some mandatory expungements now in Minnesota, and the BCA is going through those. There's been changes to our peeping Tom laws. Under the old laws, peeping Tom, you had to be on the outside of someone's house, and if you invaded their privacy, that was illegal. But if you were on the inside and taking videos of them, that was not illegal. So they've closed the loophole on that. They've also added some changes to organized retail theft. I think we all heard about those cases where a lot of juveniles would go into a retail place and just smash and grab a lot of stuff. So they added new violations for that. And finally, the other thing that is changing with Minnesota laws is starting in October 1st, there's a driver's license for all. This means anyone can get a driver's license regardless of immigration status. Do you have any questions by council?
So, Ms. Monens, the 5th-degree drug cases that the county refuses to charge, are we charging them at the city level as a gross misdemeanor then?
That's correct. And so I've spoken with the county attorney, and their policy is if it's a fentanyl case, I believe they are charging it then as a felony, but other cases they are declining as part of their public policy.
And I'm sorry if I missed it kind of from a numerical standpoint. So how common is that? How much of a workload is it creating for this at the city level?
It's a couple a month, I would say. A couple cases a month that we are charging.
In an effort to clear the backlog of cases from COVID, do you feel like the outcomes are roughly the same or what they should be? or is justice kind of being swept under the rug? Can you speak to that a little?
In the beginning, when we were trying to get rid of the backlog, at least in Ramsey County, the law enforcement jail, it was full. They didn't want cases, especially for non-violent offenders. And so a lot of those cases would resolve without jail time, even though jail time was previously common under pre-COVID circumstances. I think we are going back to pre-COVID times, but the court is doing a lot more electronic home monitoring in lieu of jail time.
Okay. And then, so the last question I had, you opined on it a little bit, but it sounds like is the attendance for law enforcement being able to appear in court gone up because of the remote kind of nature of these cases, or is it about on par with what it was when they were required to be in person?
I think it's on par. I think it's a lot more convenient for our officers. A lot of the officers who we need in court, especially for the traffic tickets, are the ones who are working the night shift. So it's a lot more easy for them to appear via Zoom. They can only appear via Zoom on the traffic tickets. So this is the speeding, the running red lights. Any more serious offense, we still require in-person court.
And are those still kind of cattle call where they might be on standby for 2 hours, or are the courts able to more efficiently use their time and give them a narrower window in which to appear?
Yep, we are doing, for court trials, it's usually 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 11 o'clock. So they're given one of those 3 time periods.
Okay, thank you. Counsel, any other questions? Very good. Well, thank you for the detailed report, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 5C, Community Development Department Biannual Report. Ms. Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, I am going to present tonight for the Community Development Department the first half of 2023, their biannual budget, or excuse me, report. So overall, there's been an increase in all divisions in community development. For planning, although there's no numbers to measure there, it is important to note that staff spent significantly more time on community engagement during the first half of 2023 with the implementation of the city's new concept plan process and neighborhood meetings associated with North Campus, 2502 County Road E, and 2687 County Road D for those land use applications. Though that all resulted in both better project outcomes and higher community involvement and satisfaction in the planning process, we believe, having that new land use process. For the building department, the city experienced a 17% increase in the total number of permits in the first half of 2023 when compared to the same time last year. That resulted in a 97% increase in plan and permit fees over the same period. The most significant contributors to those increases were the Lochner apartment building at County Road E and Hoffman Road and improvements at North Campus. The Lochner apartments also contributed over $120,000 to the city through park dedication fees. For code enforcement complaints were steady in the first half of 2022 and 2023. Proactive or city-initiated cases were up significantly in 23 as compared to 2022, and that is primarily the result of the code enforcement officer position being vacant for a significant portion of last year. The types of code enforcement cases, the most significant increases were in the areas of parking, motor vehicles, and miscellaneous, which miscellaneous includes signs, animals, rental violations, and work done without a permit. The most notable increases in violation in the first half of 23 when compared with the first half of 22 was in Ward 2. And most of that increase came from exterior storage and motor vehicle violations. When we look at zoning, the first half of 2023, we saw a 5% increase in zoning activity when compared to the first half of 2022. And there were increases in the number of questions and inquiries and decreases in the number of zoning permits and meetings in the first half of 23. And with that, I can try and answer any questions you have.
Council, any questions for Ms. Crawford? All right. Thank you for the report. Item 6, public hearings. We have nothing scheduled, which brings us to item 7A, second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 1104, Tobacco and Related Products. Ms. Crawford, when you're ready.
All right, Mayor and members of the council. So I'll just give a high overview. This is the second reading, as you just said. So the city currently does not expressly regulate tobacco product shops as a separate use in the zoning code. Current regulations for tobacco product shops need to be updated to keep pace with state and federal laws that have changed over the years. So to address those areas, the city council did impose a moratorium ordinance on the establishment and expansion of tobacco shops that was adopted last September. So during that moratorium period, staff and the city attorney did study our regulations, and we have brought to you a proposed ordinance. We did not make any changes from the first reading, and so just highlights of that proposed ordinance are, obviously, we updated the definitions and added a new definition for tobacco product shop. As it relates to exclusive tobacco product shops, we are proposing a limit of 10 tobacco licenses in any given year in city limits. Again, that's to an exclusive tobacco product shop. We updated regulations to align with recent changes in both federal and state laws, and it grants council the authority to impose administrative penalties for violating state laws or local ordinances. So tonight, staff does recommend that the City Council conduct a second reading and adopt the attached ordinance amendment regarding tobacco and related products, and adopt the attached resolution authorizing summary publication of the ordinance. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Crawford. I think when we've discussed this a bit last meeting and then at some work session at some point in the past, more or less a housekeeping matter. We needed an update to the regulation. This brings us kind of up to speed and in line with other municipalities. So, council, do we have any thoughts on this? Or would anyone approve? I have a motion to approve the ordinance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The ordinance passes. I would entertain a motion to adopt the attached and accompanying resolution.
So moved.
I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The resolution passes. All right, item 7B, second reading of an ordinance requiring licensing and imposing regulations on the sale of edible cannabinoid products. Ms. Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As you just said, this is a second reading of that ordinance. If I can have the slide change. Thank you. So just a high overview again. On July 22, the state legalized certain edible THC products or edible cannabinoid products. The council approved an interim ordinance authorizing a study and imposing a moratorium on the sale of those products last September. Then this legislative session, the state enacted legislation relating to the local relating to the legalization of cannabis, and it's everything that we have discussed at the last meeting, so I'm going to skip the rest of that. So again, once the Office of Cannabis Management is established, they will be the one regulating they will be the regulating authority for the licenses of cannabis businesses and the sale of cannabinoid products. However, our moratorium is approaching expiration, and until OCM begins licensing the sale of lower potency hemp products, there will not be any regulatory authority overseeing the sale of that in the city. So staff was directed to prepare an ordinance having a short-term license for those lower potency hemp products. And tonight we are here for a second reading of that ordinance. And highlights of the ordinance include obviously applicable definitions, eligible and ineligible license qualifications, application procedure. The products must be stored in areas not freely accessible to customers and the general public. An application period is consistent with all other city business licenses. Sales are only allowed to those 21 years and older. It allows for compliance checks, revocation, and suspension of the license. The licensing decisions do rest with the city council. And it terminates and will no longer be effective once the edible cannabinoid products are licensed through OCM. So staff does recommend you conduct the second reading and adopt the attached ordinance relating to that, as well as adopting the attached resolution approving the summary publication of the ordinance. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Well, my brief comments on this, it's soon to be taken out of our hands when the OCM has authority to regulate it. But in the interim, I think it's good public policy that we license it, we control it, we regulate it until it no longer is in our hands. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the ordinance.
I'll move the ordinance.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Councilmember Walsh.
Just before you call the vote. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the staff. This is really good work, and we didn't have to do this as a city. We asked the staff to do this work with this interim ordinance, to plug the gap. We found ourselves a year ago kind of in an unregulated mess, and we really had our hands were tied. We really nothing we can do. So this kind of cleans that up, and I feel a little better for this interim period to have this regulation in place. And the same goes for the tobacco ordinance, getting all that cleaned up. This represents a lot of work. By others, not us. We've given some input and watched you draft it. So I think we're in good shape after we pass both these ordinances today. And then we have more coming, obviously, even today and then in the future. So,
Very good. Any further comments or discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The ordinance is adopted. I'd entertain a motion to approve the accompanying resolution.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The resolution passes. All right. We're humming along. Yeah, that's what we're going for.
There'll be none left.
Get this
Don't worry.
inside a tight
Don't even
45
try.
minutes, and we can get our sugar rush
See how big
soon.
that crowd is.
All right. Item 8, new business. The White Bear Area Food Shelf Lease Agreement. Mr. Juba.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Tonight we have Perry Peterson, Executive Director of the White Bear Area Food Shelf, and Tina Volp, the Board President for the Food Shelf, here with you to talk about a new additional service that they're looking to offer. And along with that, we have a lease consideration because that is proposed to be done in city-owned property. So if that sounds familiar to you, that's because the Food Shelf currently operates and will continue to operate out of the city's former public works site. This is an additional service, which again they'll talk about and explain a little bit further here. And before they come up, just on the lease side of things, the business that we have to take care of tonight. If this is in the city's Normandy Center building, and the picture you're looking at is the far west end of that building. So these spaces were formerly occupied by SEC, or not by SEC TV, they're still there, by the White Bear Drapery and the Garden of Hope Montessori School. So they have been vacant. The school district temporarily operated during COVID a testing center out of the furthest west suite, but they're currently both vacant. Other current occupants of the space include Comcast, SEC TV, and the White Bear Dance Center. So the proposed lease is a three-year agreement, and it's for about 3,040 square feet. And the proposed rate has been reduced from the market rate for that building to reflect improvements that the Food Shelf is making that the city would have otherwise had to make involving the rooftop units. So we're reflecting that in the rent. That's a practice that we've used in the past, specifically with the burger bar renovations. So with that, if you have any questions on the lease itself, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I would invite Mr. Peterson and Ms. Volpe up to talk about the new operation.
Very good.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to start off with just a quick story about a neighbor that just celebrated their twin daughters graduating from high school. Now those daughters are off to nursing school and off to a psychology program. And that's like an exciting milestone, especially for a family that was struggling putting food on the table. And in the midst of the excitement, our neighbor reached out to thank the Food Shelf. She believed that the great success of her daughters is attributed to having food on the table every night, and especially nutritious food like vegetables and fruit and all the fresh stuff that the Food Shelf provides. She wanted to thank the Food Shelf for making this happen for her family. And that's why I go to work every day, and that's why I'm here tonight. The Food Shelf doesn't serve nameless people. The Food Shelf makes a real difference in the lives of our neighbors and our community. And I want to just thank you for this opportunity to be able to share that and just to and for the partnership that the city of White Bear has with this organization, and the 46 years that it's been part of White Bear Lake. Second, I'd like to share with you that the food shelf needs. I'd like to share with you that the food and support needs in our community continue to grow. Over the past 4 years, we have doubled the number of people that we've served in a year. Additionally, in the last couple of months, we've seen a 21% increase in visits to the food shelf. As you might suspect, this is due to inflation and also in March, reduction to pre-pandemic levels of SNAP benefits, which is traditional food stamp program for people. So our neighbors need our help, and as the food shelf, we're ready to step up to the challenge. One of the innovative steps that we're taking is a community market at this location. The community market will look and feel like a neighborhood market with low barriers, expanded culturally connected foods, and offices to host nonprofits that partner with us to specialize in wraparound services such as rental assistance, utility assistance, access to programs for young families and seniors, to just name a few. The new community market will complement our existing programs, like our curbside program, our mobile, our delivery markets, and allow us to return to in-person shopping for our neighbors. On top of that, it also doubles the number of people that we can serve. We've been restricted in our current site. So the community market and the lease with the city of White Bear Lake are imperative for our ability to leverage the generosity of our community to serve our neighbors with compassion and dignity. The White Bear Area Food Shelf looks forward to utilizing this additional location to better serve our community for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into questions, I just have two comments. One, I wish we weren't sitting here saying that there's a need for expansion, but I'm grateful that you have the resources and the community has the appetite to make the donations to allow this and make this possible. So I want to applaud you and thank you for all the good work that the White Bear Lake Food Shelf does. As you know, I had an opportunity to tour the food shelf, and it's a fantastically well-run organization filled with very dedicated volunteers and staff. So, this is a no-brainer to me. I think we're happy to provide the city's resources, and I'm sure you'll take good care of the property and do good things for the community. So I would urge the council to approve this. But with that, does council have any questions for Mr. Peterson? Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two questions. One's sort of process, one's more philosophical, if you'll indulge me. If you'll indulge me, Perry. Sure. Just on the process, what do you think the vision is once you're up and running on the south side with the in-person shopping experience? Do you think it's going to make the line smaller in the north side? Because your curbside delivery takes up the curb a lot. I get a call once in a while on the line. So do you think the line will be alleviated in the future? What do you think could happen there?
Yeah, it's hard to predict exactly what's going to happen there. But the new facility is going to have, currently we have 13 parking spots. The new one would have 45 that would be available. So it just would alleviate some of that pressure.
And people may choose that, right? They may choose the shopping
Correct.
Experience because then they can kind of pick what they want instead of the curbside.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's going to be more of a retail experience where it's going to have expanded hours. People can walk in. It's not going to be as limited as our 13 parking spots in our current facility. We will continue to use that. It is from talking to our neighbors. They do really appreciate that, especially people with mobility issues. So the curbside program will be able to do that. And this market will really focus in on fresh fresh items that people come in for a couple days to be able to pick up some fresh items that way.
Yeah. Thanks. On the philosophical side, so since you're here and you're an expert, this is a struggle I have all the time. When you look at the newspaper, when you look at the state of the state, it's such a tale of two cities, or the dichotomy, whatever the word is. On the one hand, we see, low unemployment, wage growth. You've seen some new statistics there. Even when we're as consumers, we can't get served sometimes in a restaurant or place because there don't have enough employees, and so you see all that. Everything's going great, and then you're not alone in White Bear Lake here. I mean, across the state, visits to food shelves are doubled. So what? And you gave me some ideas. Inflation and obviously the end of the COVID era sort of federal support programs. But is there something else we're missing, or is there? I mean, you talk about the average White Bear family that's coming in. Where are they at in that mix?
I'd say it's pretty reflective of what I read about our industry, that it's a lot of those factors going into that. A lot of people, the statistics go to people living, paycheck to paycheck, even on several different salary levels. And so you have a medical emergency, you lose a job. I can remember a time just about a month ago that I was out in the parking lot doing something, which is rare for me to be doing it on, my hands into it. But I had a lady that just came in and didn't know what she was doing, kind of how the curbside thing worked. And she just kind of broke into tears and said, I used to volunteer here.
Right.
I never thought I'd be here, and I lost my job, and I'm a single mom, and so that's the stories that we typically encounter. A lot of times I say it's seniors living on fixed incomes and young families kind of working it out and living on jobs that just don't cut it. And this is a way that we're able to make ends meet for people. Because 40% of our food that we distribute is food that we rescue from local grocery stores. So a lot of what we do is a redistribution within our community, is just making sure that food doesn't go to waste.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad we're partners. I support the expansion of that partnership. So.
Yeah.
Council, any other questions for Mr. Peterson? Thank you very much. I'd entertain a motion to adopt the attached resolution authorizing the city to execute a lease agreement with the White Bear Lake Food Shelf.
Move
So
to
moved.
approve. Second?
Second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries and the resolution passes. Thank you. All right, item 8B, first reading of an ordinance amending the fee schedule as I talk slowly so we can get the PowerPoint
slides
pulled
for
up.
this one.
No slides. We
All
just
right.
want the black screen.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Please, Ms. Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight is the first reading, amending the fee schedule regarding licensing and imposing regulations on the sale of edible cannabinoid products. So we have added fees for the ordinance that you just adopted, associated fees for the application, a license, and administrative offenses. Those are what is missing in our ordinance right now because this is a new license. So for the moment, we are proposing to mirror the cost of tobacco license things. We may suggest increasing these fees later in the year. We'll see when we do our regular fee schedule review. But the license is $125. The application and background is $500, and then penalties vary in prices in your attached staff report. So following a second reading and a public hearing, so we're not doing a public hearing tonight for this, but following a second reading and public hearing, those are scheduled for September 12th. We will ask you to consider adopting that. So, thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Council, any comments on this? Councilmember
One
Walsh.
question, Mr. Mayor. So the $500 application background is a one-time, presumably, and then the $125 recurs yearly? Is that what we're looking at, or?
Mayor, Councilmember Walsh, yes, that is the initial application. Again, this will only be in effect for 18 months,
Oh, that's right.
but
Yeah.
there would be 2 cycles, I guess.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on this? All right, we'll take it up again at the next council meeting. Item 8C, first reading of an ordinance prohibiting the use of cannabis products in public spaces. Ms. Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So as part of the bill legalizing the use of cannabis, the legislature did not prohibit the use of cannabis in public spaces. Instead, they left that to local units of government for the right to do that. So use of cannabis involving the inhalation of smoke, aerosol, or vapor is prohibited in any location where smoking is prohibited under the Minnesota Clean Indoor Air Act. There are other specific location prohibitions in the new law, such as public schools, if you will, but there is not a general prohibition on the use in public spaces. So at the direction of the City Council at the regular meeting on July 25, the city attorney and staff prepared an ordinance prohibiting the use of cannabis in public spaces within city limits. Highlights of that ordinance include definitions, including definitions of public places in which the use of cannabis products is prohibited under the ordinance. The statute excludes certain places from being considered a public place, so the definition of public place expressly includes those places. The focus is on places owned by governmental entities, not private places such as a store parking lot. It does include public right-of-way and I believe sidewalks. It prohibits the use, again, in public places. The penalty is a petty misdemeanor, and the ordinance also states that an administrative penalty may be imposed. That ordinance is proposed to go into effect the first day of publication of summary. So that may be a little bit confusing there and jumbled, but we're conducting a first reading of the ordinance, and the city attorney and I can stand for any questions. We will have a public hearing and the second reading at the September 12 City Council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Just for clarification's sake, because there's sort of this cliff of what we can and can't regulate in the very near future, our ability to prohibit the use of cannabis in public places doesn't go away. It will continue even after the state takes over the licensing structure and has more of an active role. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This is something that's part of the new law and is an ongoing authority the city has. The only thing I could perhaps see is once the rules are published, maybe they get into defining some of the terms that they use in the statute, like public park with equipment, kind of fleshing some of that out a little bit more. But other than that, this is something that the city retains authority over.
Very good. Council, any other questions on this? Councilmember Jones.
So cannabis will be legal, correct? What's the difference between cannabis and tobacco in public spaces? If cannabis is now legal, why aren't we saying tobacco going right with this? Because I don't want the cops to be called going, there's some guy smoking pot in XYZ area, and no, he's not. He's smoking a Camel. So I'm confused about, I will probably vote against this because I think it's dumb that we have tobacco can smoke everywhere, but you can't smoke a legal product. So
Perhaps our city attorney could just clarify for the record what the status is of tobacco usage in public parks.
Sure. Mr. Mayor and council, in looking at this, I would say that your ordinance doesn't have a clear message on that when it comes to tobacco. There is a provision when it comes to liquor, though, and it's earlier in the same section that has very similar, not in parks, not in parking lots, that sort of thing. So this is, to be fair, this is really modeled more off of the liquor prohibition than it is off the smoking prohibition. But there is the statute already lines up, as I mentioned in the cover memo, lines up smoking indoors. So if you can't smoke a cigarette, you also can't smoke cannabis indoors, those sorts of things. So some of that's already
statute.
Right. Some of that's already lined up in state law.
That makes sense. But I don't believe I think I can cross the street smoking a cigarette right now. But if it was cannabis, I could not.
I think you raise a good point. Let's prohibit the use of tobacco use in public places.
So, I mean, I honestly, why I'm against it is not because, it's one or the other. let's make things simple for our staff and our police or whoever. It's either both or none.
Councilmember Hughes.
Mayor and members of the council. Oh, well, I guess I go back to the liquor laws. You can't walk around with the open can of Miller in the middle of the park, down the street.
Yep.
You can't bring it in here. Maybe you can, I don't know, but I don't think you can, so there you can't. So I think it's a little bit more, I mean, as he said, cannabis is, I think, while the method of use is similar to a cigarette, the effects are more similar to alcohol. And those effects are what we're trying to avoid having take place on the dock or on the park bench. I mean, people are irritated by secondhand smoke for sure, but the drunk guy or the high guy is the guy that
He's more fun.
I'd like to avoid in the park.
No, and I anticipated that, and Councilmember Hughes, and I'm not trying to do a gotcha here. There's different ways to take the cannabis. It's not just in smoke form. So are we going to make that illegal to take it in any other form, walking down the sidewalk in public spaces? And how do we enforce that?
That's a great question.
And this is not us. It's not looking at staff and going, gotcha. This is like one going back to the state and go, nice crappy law that you wrote, or that you didn't. And you didn't think of everything, and let's jam it down the cities and let make the municipalities deal with it. But honestly, my biggest concern, Mr. Mayor and Council, is really, I mean, if somebody is smoking a cigarette or smoking, I mean, how do the cops going to stop and, you know, every time someone's smoking and exhaling, or it's in the wintertime and it's cold and it's just my breath, I wasn't smoking at all. Oh, sorry. Maybe I'm taking it to the nth degree, but it's just something to consider, thought process moving towards the next, you know, reading.
Councilmember Hughes.
Mayor, members of the council, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but it does talk about here edibles. So it's not just limited to the method of whatever you call it, the method of using the product, intake. And I don't disagree in terms of like, how's the police officer going to know? To me, this isn't the guy's caught in the act. This is a method that maybe, you know, GDO law uses later on because you've been high in the park 12 times and finally somebody caught it on video, however you took it, and they can then use that. But I don't think, I mean, to your point, I don't think this is this isn't probably going to be used every other afternoon. This isn't what she's going to be spending her time on.
Yeah.
It just maybe is a tool in her toolbox.
True. No, that's actually a valid point. And I could, you know, I'm sure I walk down the street with my water bottle full of vodka, drinking all day long anyways, and nobody knows it. But
I've never done that.
Wow, don't start saying
just saying, how are they gonna police that, right? I really don't do that because I don't like vodka. Short-termer, remember, my mouth is just gonna get less.
Or
worse.
you walk down the park
just to
and walk
clarify,
down the
it's not
sidewalk to your
vodka.
friend's house.
It's whiskey in an apple juice bottle. All right, this being a first reading, any other comments on this?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, thank you for,
Sure.
thank you.
Very good. All right, we'll take this up again at the next council meeting. That went sideways quick. Item 9, discussion. We have nothing further scheduled. Item 10, communication from our city manager, Ms. Crawford.
Okay, a few announcemements. Senator Heather Gustafson was selected as a League of Minnesota Cities Legislator of Distinction in 2023. 20 House representatives were selected and 15 Senator members were recognized. So just wanted to call attention to that. Thank you for her work. And the housing telephone survey is underway. That is being conducted by the Morris Leatherman Company. So we have put something in the paper and on social media notifying notifying the public about that. DNR, we have a drought warning response phase, which requires requires us to reduce our water supply measures. So this is just a reminder to everyone that watering lawns is prohibited between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. on Monday through September, every day of the week here in White Bear Lake. And
If I do that, I don't know, is that a misdemeanor that the county prosecutor won't prosecute, or just making my point is he get to
believe
pick
that
and
is an
choose any other things that he doesn't want to
That's
prosecute?
just,
Using
Thank you.
cannabis while watering your yard. You're in a lot of
On the
trouble.
boulevard, on the right of way.
Watch it.
On the right of way. Thank you, madam. Sorry, city manager.
no, just-
Ms. Crawford, please.
Thank you. Okay, City Hall, the entrance to City Hall off of 2nd Street will be closed starting tomorrow for approximately a month. Yep, it's going to be terrible. Yes, yes, I see you in the morning. So on the screen is a detour route directing people to Bald Eagle and to 3rd. So it's going to be incredibly tight here. If you are here, consider please parking elsewhere because we are not going to have much parking at all between police and fire and the license bureau customers. So for about a month, yes. And that did go on social media today. So that is what I have for tonight. Thank you.
All right, questions for Ms. Crawford? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye. We're adjourned.
Slam that guy. Yeah, he's trying to make the 1 hour mark.
That really is surprising. I thought this was going to be a late one.
Look, intoxication.
That's what I was trying, you guys were flying through it. I was trying
It mentions all that. It's in there, yeah.
so that's